Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's our post-game live on location at Bud Walton Arena. 20th ranked Arkansas hosting in-state Division I foe, the first of two this year in-state D1 foes. The Hogs will play on this court, in the state. Arkansas will play UCA in December in North Little Rock in Central Arkansas. But tonight, 79-67 over a worthy Little Rock Trojans team in the middle of really closing on the end of a six-game road swing. Had won back-to-back road games after losing their first two road games. And Arkansas improves to 4-1 now with a 79-67 win over Darrell Walker. Razorbacks royalty, really good head coach at Little Rock, has his team shorthanded. Arkansas shorthanded. Little Rock gave Arkansas a scare after it looked like the Razorbacks were going to beat the brakes off this team early. This has become kind of a theme for the Razorbacks. Get a lot of live ball turnovers, a lot of steals early against these mid-major foes on their home court, jump out to leads, and then progressively they find struggle points. Teams start to make adjustments. Teams start to get their confidence on this court. And the next thing you know, Arkansas's looking for answers in the second halves of games where teams consistently come back on them. Now, they've stretched those situations out, and they've won by double digits each time. This one a little narrower. When you go back to Lipscomb, the script is similar. Second half comebacks, Arkansas won that by 16. You look back at the Troy game after losing to Baylor. Similar circumstance, more of a grind game, more of a lower scoring game that night. And that played out with Pacific. Arkansas jumps on them early. Pacific, the Tigers start hitting threes on Monday. Next thing you know, it's a game midway through the second half. Same thing played out here. Arkansas built a 22-point first half lead. Jumped out, I think at that point it was 39-17, maybe, something like that. And Little Rock got close enough at halftime, within 18, so it was still a pretty big margin, but it could have been worse. If the first half Little Rock hung in there, and then the second half, we've seen this so much with Arkansas, just a lot of letdowns, adjustments by the other teams. Little Rock throwing a zone defense. We've seen Baylor do it. We've seen others do it. Troy did it, and you saw it again tonight. It was one of those morphing 2-3, 1-3-1, 1-1-3 zones where they matched up with certain players they didn't want to get loose. And if you look at Arkansas in the first half, what really stood out to me, not only the quick steals early, Adu Thero's a beast, everybody else pitching in, getting out and getting easy scores and building up that lead. But if you looked at Arkansas's half-court offense in the first half, it was really good when they had to play a half-court game. The spacing was good, the ball movement was crisp and fast, and they were driving off of that. And what they did was, because both of these teams came in forcing 17 turnovers a game, both of them racking up near 10 steals per game. But what Arkansas did to start the game in half-court offense, not only was the spacing good, the ball movement crisp around the perimeter, but Arkansas was getting a head start on their drives off passes. So when the next pass came, two or three passes after the offense initiated, you saw Arkansas's guards or Thero getting downhill as soon as the ball touched their hands and didn't let Little Rock's defenders fill gaps defensively or even trap. Little Rock likes to trap a lot. They weren't able to do it. Arkansas's ball movement and then decisions on driving were that good. It was pretty clean, pretty crisp for the most part in the first half. Thus, Arkansas shot, I think they were 18 of 31 in the first half, nearly 60%. Didn't shoot a lot of free throws. This is a Little Rock team. I talked about it in my written pregame preview of this in the Trojan Scouting Report. They foul 20 times a game and put teams taking nearly 29 free throws a game. Arkansas took 2 free throws in the first half. A lot of that had to do with Little Rock was never set defensively, not when Arkansas was running out after steals, easy scores, and even in the half court, a lot of the half court stuff, Little Rock's defense hadn't gotten fully back and settled in. Arkansas was attacking that secondary transition I talked about so much about Calipari's preference. Primary, secondary transition, everything feeding off of that. Second half, Trojans really focused on their zone defense. Arkansas can't solve it. And then you see Arkansas's players, because they can't pass through it, into it, and out of it, trying to drive. And it was a lot easier for Little Rock to just sit back on those drives, and guys got off balance. I saw, between Adu Thero and with his 6 turnovers, Carter Knox, who played a lot tonight, took a lot of shots. We'll get into some of these individual stuff. But you saw Arkansas players off balance, errant passes, bad lob passes. And we continue to say it, Arkansas's turnovers are mostly unforced. You don't want to take away some credit for Little Rock, but how many times have we seen it? Arkansas's turnovers are unforced for the most part, just careless play, and they get playing it's not that they want to play with pace and speed, but they get a little ahead of themselves on some of these plays and don't make the routine or the best play. They're trying to get all the way to the rim because they see how they start games, but they didn't start the games playing that way. They were counter-punching off that defense and getting live ball turnovers. Once that goes away, when you're in the half court, you better play smart basketball. And Calipari said it in the postgame. He thought his guys made poor decisions in that second half offensively. And, if you look at Arkansas defensively, there were also breakdowns in that second half. You started to see some of that late in the first half when Little Rock hung around and had a couple of mini spurts to get that lead back under 20. And again, it was 18 at halftime. You saw Little Rock get within 7, Arkansas build it back to double digits second half. Little Rock would get it down to 8. Arkansas would go on another run. With about a minute and a half left in this game, it was down to 8 again. And Arkansas went on a 5-1 run to finish with a 12-point win. Again, 79-67. We're going to go through the stats. Arkansas looked like a much better team in the first half, not as much in the second half, yet they find ways to finish off these mid-major teams, at least with double-digit margins. This is going to be hard to continue to repeat and recycle the better competition you play. Little Rock's a good mid-major, but some of the teams, we know this in the SEC, and even in this non-conference coming up in some of these marquee matchups, Arkansas's got one more mid-major at home to close out this 4-game homestand, 4 mid-majors, 3-0 in this stretch, 3 consecutive wins after losing to Baylor. Maryland Eastern Shore on Monday, and then on Thanksgiving Day, the same week, it's Feast Week next week, Arkansas's in Kansas City to play Illinois, which came into the week undefeated and ranked 25th, moved into the poll, lost at Alabama, got behind big in that game, fought back, but lost that game on the road. We'll see if Illinois drops out of the poll probably on Monday. But that'll present a lot of problems and challenges for Arkansas, most likely, based on now what we've seen play out through 5 games. Arkansas's 4-1, most of its mid-major work. Again, that Baylor game that Arkansas lost. But you go back even to the exhibition season, some of the same issues, unforced turnovers, struggling shooting from 3 tonight. At least 2 players did. Some of the Arkansas's, main scorers on the season, their main production guys did okay from 3. They were just fine. But you continue to see Nelly Davis struggle. Man, I mean, this guy has not gotten acclimated, and I think it's now impacting what he does, where he was really good in hustle plays defensively, some of that stuff early on, even though he wasn't scoring. Tonight, he didn't have a big rebounding game. He did get 2 or 3 steals, but I think only 3 rebounds. He usually gives you 5 or 6. Only took 5 shots. He didn't have a good first half, missed a layup, then had a 3 rim out. And I think it got in his head, but he's, I'm not going to say missing in action. He's helped this team, but he's not giving the kind of production and having the kind of impact and role that we thought he would. And so that's part of Arkansas's issues right now, because the more that you can focus on 1 or 2 players, maybe 3, on a team that with all the pieces they brought in the offseason, thinking on any given night it could be anybody. Well, Arkansas is kind of predictable. It's a Theroux and Boogie Flan with most of the scoring production. Guys like Big Z chipping some in, not strong enough on the glass, not strong enough in post defense. He will block some shots. But this is an Arkansas team with a lot of more questions, in my opinion, as we move forward than answers right now. And again, it was beautiful most of the first 20 minutes, and then it was just really a struggle. A lot of turnovers. Arkansas with 19 turnovers. I think 11 of those were in the second half. They did force 19 turnovers. 15 steals tonight, more than doubled Little Rock. 15 to 17 steals. Again, both teams kind of similar there. And both teams forcing 17 turnovers a game coming into this. Top 35 in the country in Division I for both of them. But at the end of the day, the turnovers were the same. And that tells you Arkansas was getting steals, working for that on one end. On the other end, a lot of unforced stuff. You didn't have as many live ball steals that were generated by Little Rock's defense. It was just errant passes, guys falling down, taking the wrong angles, trying to force too much where there's 2 guys waiting on. I mean, just you add it up. The lob passes, there were some really missed opportunities, multiple, just trying to lob it to the rim when there was too much traffic and there wasn't a play there. But Arkansas in the second half, what did help Arkansas, the shooting was bad, the execution on offense was bad, the zone was had Arkansas out of sorts. But what did help Arkansas was this team that fouls a lot, Little Rock. Again, something I wrote about in my preview. The 2 keys I said is Arkansas would have to still would need to be at minimum excellent in transition off of their live ball turnovers. Well, they did that mostly in the first half, but there was some of that in the second half too. Again, 15 steals, and Arkansas finishes this game plus 13 in fast break scoring in transition, 22-9. They won by 12. And the other part I said was in concert with that, the second thing I mentioned was you need to get at least 20 plus free throw attempts. At halftime, you had the 18-point lead. You only took 2 free throws. The second half was so ugly and advantage Little Rock that Arkansas' saving grace in many ways was getting to the free throw line. Arkansas ends up in this game shooting 22 of 27, so 25 free throw attempts in the second half. I think Little Rock got up to 8 or 9 fouls with like 13 minutes to play, and they were at 10 fouls with 8 minutes to play. So Arkansas benefited from that. 22 of 27 at 81.5%. So if you're looking at two things, it was Arkansas's transition offense early in the game off those live ball turnovers. Second half, finding ways to get to the free throw line, even when the other team's making runs, and cashing in there. And Arkansas won the two key areas that I wrote about being the two most important things. The other thing is Arkansas's three-point shooting, 7 of 24, a little bit misleading. We saw Carter Knox today playing off the bench. Man, he took the highest volume of shots we've seen. I think he took 11 or 12 shots tonight, made 2. His first basket was on a putback. It was his first field goal since I think the Lipscomb game in the opener. I think it was his first field goal make since then. But he ended up hitting another shot in the first half, a little baseline runner. It was really nice, about 12 feet. But he kept shooting after that. He was left wide open for a lot of threes off Arkansas's really good ball movement. And one of the reasons Little Rock hung around is Arkansas missed a bunch of open threes. He, Nelly Davis, some of them looked good. Some of Nelly's did. Some of Carter's were spraying a little bit. But he worked. He battled in the second half, got to the free throw line a couple of times, went 2 of 4 there. But every time Little Rock made a run, it's interesting what Arkansas did. Arkansas has not been good in putbacks this year. Yet Carter Knox had one. Billy Richmond had one in the first half as well. And then Adu Thiero, when his big night, we're going to talk about him individually, but one of those Carter Knox misses on the second trip to the foul line there in the second half, Thiero busts in there and gets a putback offensive rebound off a free throw. That was huge for Arkansas. Arkansas not a good three-point shooting team. They've been better the last 2 games. Looks like it's trending better. As a team, not so much tonight, 7 of 24, 29.2%. That looks like the Hogs pre-last 3 halves of basketball, second half against Troy, both halves against Pacific on Monday. But it's really individual players that kind of brought that percentage down. But I do think it's interesting. When Little Rock made runs in both halves, it was a Boogie Flan 3 or it was a Big Z 3. And late in the game, it was DJ Wagner hitting back-to-back threes. So Arkansas's threes, what do they say? Sometimes percentages lie a little bit. It's when you make them, when you need them. Well, you want to make them at a high rate throughout the game because that helps you. But if a team's going to make a run on you, it's nice to be able to knock them down in those situations. And Arkansas's three-point shooting tonight was timely. I'll put it that way. So Arkansas had timely three-point shooting. So again, this is a game. It's a hodgepodge. I'm a stream of conscious when I come on here. I write down stats and I just kind of go talk about what I remember seeing and what I think happened. But again, Little Rock made runs in the second half. Hog fans are probably disappointed that you didn't, expand on that 22-point first half lead and at least win by 20. But at the end of the day, you got to win 4-1 in Arkansas again. Maryland Eastern Shore, mid-major school coming in on Monday at Bud Walton. It'll be the last of these 4 home games against mid-majors, and it's the last home game in November because the last November game is on Thanksgiving Day, again against Illinois and Kansas City. Then you turn the page to December, and you've quickly got Miami on the road in the ACC-SEC Challenge on December 3rd. You come back here for a home game. Is it Texas San Antonio? It's one of the Texas hyphen schools. I think it's San Antonio. In a game, I think it's a Saturday game actually. And then Arkansas's back in at a neutral site in New York in the Jimmy V Classic to play Michigan. So there's going to be some tough sledding up ahead for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I thought Darrell Walker's team had a lot of fight and a lot of belief in itself to overcome adversity. But in the same token, Arkansas has let these mid-majors back in every night. Every time they've played them here, going back to the start of the season before the Baylor game against Lipscomb, it's happened every game. So, there's a bit of a script, but you still Little Rock being shorthanded. No KK Robinson, Creed Williamson, that Arkansas's previous staff recruited for a little bit out of the Little Rock area. His dad, Big Nasty Corliss Williamson, everybody knows who that is, was in the house tonight. His son's out. It's one of the injuries they're dealing with right now. He's out. Creed's played well for them off the bench so far this season. With KK out, they've struggled with turnovers. It's one of the reasons in my keys that I wrote about in my preview that this is where Arkansas could really feast at home. And it looked that way early. I mean, all the things I was seeing with Little Rock where they struggled, it was playing out. And then Arkansas was really good at getting those live ball turnovers. So it was like a cocktail for a great start. And you think you could maintain some of that. Again, 15 steals, it's hard to say Arkansas didn't do the job there. That's elite. But they missed some opportunities. They've been really good in transition. They were early in the game. Second half, they missed some opportunities. Just errant plays, errant passes. Again, guys slipping down, taking the wrong angles, trying to force instead of maybe making the easy pass, throwing passes that weren't going to finish. And look, let's go through the individual stuff because we'll go back through shooting here for both teams here in a little bit and some of the other stats that stood out. But Adu Theriot, man, he continues to put up all SEC performances. 23 points on efficient shooting. I mean, he's Arkansas's leading scorer coming in at 18.5 points a game. So he's starting to threaten that 20-point mark. I don't know anyone saw that coming based on his first 2 years at Kentucky. Guys progress, guys get better. He's got projections, mock draft projections moving ahead. But I think that was interesting. It's interesting that so far he is Arkansas's clear best player in terms of when you start adding up everything. 8 rebounds, tonight. 6 steals in this game. He did have 6 turnovers, but a couple of blocks. I mean, he's stuffing that stat sheet. And then you have Boogie Flan, Arkansas's true freshman. This is arguably the best freshman in the conference and one of the best in the country. I guess that stuff's debatable, but so far he's averaging 16.5 points a game, shooting 40% from 3 coming in. Tonight, 3 of 5 from distance, 20 points. He struggled with turnovers. Typically, he's more reliable, but 4 turnovers for him. Look, multiple players had multiple turnovers tonight. You just had a lot of turnovers by guys tonight. I think 5 or 6 players had more than 1 turnover for Arkansas. That's how you get to 19 pretty quick. You only had 7 players. Jonas Adu, Trevor Brazil, we haven't even said this yet, 17 minutes in. They're still out. Arkansas, you could see the impact in the paint with Big Z. I mean, 3 rebounds for Z tonight. He was 1 of 3 from 3, shooting over 60% coming in. His percentage is still up there. But he did finish with 10 points. He did have a couple of blocks. You know he's going to get at least 2 or 3 blocks. 3 turnovers, and after a 7 turnover game, he's averaged 5 in the last 2 games. Arkansas needs him to be stronger and better with the ball, make better decisions, and stay locked in. There's only so much he can do right now about playing with physicality, but he needs to take to heart, in my opinion, being a little more determined in dealing with contact and playing through it. He kind of, to me, a little bit gives up on plays when he gets pushed around a little bit. So there's an area to improve there. Calipari said in the postgame, look, he should probably be playing 18 to 20 minutes. When we get the other big guys back, it's going to change us who we are quite a bit. And then DJ Wagner tonight, 3 of 6 from 3. I mentioned those 2 clutch ones late. He was 2 of 4 in the last game. Here's a guy that was 0 for 6 combined in Arkansas's first 3 games. The last 2, my math says he's 5 of 10. That's 50%. DJ Wagner's thawing out a little bit. Now, he had more, he struggled with turnovers this year. Last year at Kentucky, 3.3 assists per game, 1.5 turnovers, so better than 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. Right now, he's threatening that 1-to-1 ratio. He's better than that. Not quite 1-to-1, but it's, he's pushing his luck there. So a few more turnovers for him tonight, but overall, he did some good things offensively again after. You wonder, is he going to turn that around? Because remember, he was a 29% three-point shooter last year dealing with that ankle injury, and he was 20% after even going 2 for 4 in the last game. He got him to 2 for 10 on the year, so now he's improved on that. 5 of 16 now, if my math's right, just doing it on the fly here. So he's getting better and better from the three-point line. Again, Carter Knox, I don't remember I think he was 2 of 11 from the field tonight, and I think he was 0 for 5 from 3. Nelly Davis, 1 of 5. 0 of 3 from 3, so those guys missed 8 threes. If you take those away, Arkansas finished 7 of 24. I know it doesn't work that way, but the other guys that we've seen pick things up from 3 really did that. Arkansas was 7 of 18, so that's respectable when you take away those misses. 7 of 16, so that's really good if you take away those 8 misses by those 2 players. Nelly Davis, I'm not sure what's going on there. I really think the timeout for 3 weeks, they said he was out of practice. The wrist stuff, his shot in pregame looked really good, but that's not the game. That's pregame. and I remembered in the exhibition season, some of these games, he was really battling on the glass, doing some blue collar stuff, his defense and there's still some sparks of that, but less and less of it. I think less and less of it lately, certainly in this game for him. And, he's struggling right now. This is a guy that's preseason All SEC. He's on a bunch of national watch lists for Player of the Year. So you got to think it's coming. I mean, I can go back and look at guys like Stanley and Moody who struggled early, and once he got into league play where it got harder, he got better. He started knocking down threes. He got comfortable. Different system, different situation, but a veteran guy who had had success coming from relative to where he transferred from on the mid-major level. Nelly Davis, you're thinking, could he be that guy because he's been so good in his career? You don't think that this will continue, but you just don't know. Arkansas's, again, the front line's diminished. Adu Thero is gangbusters right now. Boogie Fland, I mentioned it, 20 points tonight, 7 assists. He leads this team in assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals of his own. And again, he did have the 4 turnovers. I mentioned Wagner and his 11 points, so 3 of 6 from 3. He had 5 rebounds tonight, and he had 3 steals. So DJ was in on that steal party. And then, Billy Richmond continues to be the other freshman so far that's efficient, 2 of 2 from the field, 2 of 2 at the free throw line. He plays so hard. He's so athletic. He's disruptive on defense. He's playing 90-0, but at times, too, he's stepping wrong or in the wrong spot. There were maybe some missed opportunities, but that's growth. That's part of it. You like his effort, and you like his impact. He's only going to get better. I think Carter Knox is going to thaw out. I wrote about this. He's the one guy that came in struggling from 3 and still is. But I think at some point, I'm not saying he's going to be a knockdown guy, but I think we're going to see better from him. And you're going to say, well, how could it get worse? That's a good point. Anybody that's thinking that or saying it out loud or whispering it. But we'll see. I think it can't get much worse. And I think he'll be respectable at some point shooting the basketball. He certainly has the confidence, and he got to some spots. Some of the stuff he forced and overdrove, where there were some soft spots he could have pulled up, and then sometimes he identified good shooting spots and just missed. So, but he hasn't played a whole lot of minutes, and he hasn't taken many shots until tonight. So, maybe this is going to be part of a process that turns into good. Looking at Arkansas's. Seven deep. We just went through it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys to talk about, and we didn't leave anybody out. Mwani Wilkinson, who's played 4 years at LSU in the SEC, Little Rock's leading scorer coming in, leading rebounder, leader in steals, 50% three-point share. I mean, he had a good game. He didn't necessarily shoot all that well. Arkansas's defense did a good job, especially in the first half, keeping Little Rock under 30% shooting. But Wilkinson's all over the place. He makes hustle plays. He's a blue-collar guy. He's a good spot-up three-point shooter. He's really kind of coming to his own and flourishing right now as a Little Rock Trojan. Jonathan Lawson, the transfer from Creighton. Prior to that, he was at Memphis. Slow start for him, not as great a first half. He did some good things for Little Rock to help that team in the second half. Not just scoring. I mean, he got in there and got some rebounds. And, I thought his length bothered Arkansas a little bit in that zone. That's the one thing about Little Rock. They've got good size at each position. They don't have anybody over 6'8", but they're pretty good size positionally across the board. I thought they were disruptive in a zone. It's interesting to say that, but they seem to really read everything Arkansas was trying to do and close off driving gaps that were there in that first half. And Arkansas, again, in these games, they get out early with all these steals. They had 10 at halftime, 5 in the second half, 15 total. But you see second halves, they start to wear down. I think the depth is becoming an issue. The lack of personnel is affecting that, obviously. But I think the other thing is teams start to adjust. They've taken Arkansas's best punches, and now they're challenging Arkansas. Beat us with execution, because we're not going to just give you transition all night, and we're not going to just give you downhill drives in those paint touches that Arkansas craves. The paint touches Arkansas got in the second half were mostly awkward forced drives where they were off balance and didn't have any space to really operate in once they got there. Ball movement may have served them a little bit better to create cleaner angles, and it's hard. They don't do well moving the ball against zone. They just don't. They don't have a plan and a scheme to play it inside out using the free throw line extended. There's other areas you can set guys and move them. The dunker spot, there's just different things, and Arkansas hasn't figured that out. They really haven't. Let's go through the stats real quick again. Arkansas finishes after shooting 18 of 31 in the first half, nearly 60%. only 7 of 22 in that second half, 31.8% in the second half. They finished 25 of 53, 47.5% on overall field goals. I mentioned 7 of 24 from three, 29.2%. Again, free throws, 22 of 27 for 81.5%. Arkansas only shot 2 free throws and made both in the first half. Saving grace in the second half. Little Rock finishes after being held below 30% in the first half, 22 of 59, 37.3. So they shot over 43% in the second half. They again made some adjustments. 6 of 22 from three, 27.3%. They were 1 of 11 at halftime, 5 of 11 in the second half. But here's a team on the season. It's early, small sample size, but after they came in 3-2, 5 games, they're top 30 in the country in three-point field goal efficiency, over 41%. Arkansas did the job really when you look at that. Not in the second half, but Arkansas had banked enough cushion in this game where they were able to survive some of the issues they had in that second half. Some of it was Little Rock just being better from three. So Arkansas was breaking down at both ends. I talked a lot about the sloppy play on offense. On defense, they're just not closing out possessions enough with defensive rebounds. And then Arkansas is taking a lot of gambles to strip from weak side and against players' vision on help. And when you get out of position, it's feast or famine. You better make that play like they start games, because they just punch teams in the mouth that aren't ready for it. But as the games wears on in some of these scenarios against Little Rock and other teams that we just talked about in the mid-major level, they're not completing those plays, and now they're out of position. So an easy pass or 1-2 passes when guys are on the floor trying to get a loose ball or whatever, Arkansas didn't win enough of those 50-50 balls, and they got out of position. And so easy scores, easy looks in a lot of these circumstances for the Trojans. But again, Little Rock finishes 6 of 22 from three, 27.3%. You're going to take that all day long for a team coming in shooting 41%. 17 of 23 at the foul line, 73.9%. Good there, but not good enough, because Arkansas made 5 more free throws, and that helped finish with a 12-point win. Turnovers, again, both teams with 19. Arkansas mostly unforced, and really doing the work, getting those 15 steals. I mean, aside from the steals and just manning up and getting those, the Trojans had only 4 other turnovers. So Arkansas was the one that's kind of controlling its own destiny with its own unforced errors, and then controlling destiny on the other side by creating playmaking live ball turnovers. Points off turnovers, Arkansas plus 11, 28-17. That margin was much bigger in the first half, much bigger at halftime, So the second half, Arkansas, it slipped away a little bit. Rebounds, Arkansas plus 2. This is one thing I said about Calipari was hired. His teams are always good in 2 things, his best teams. Being superior in transition, so far so good, and glass work, especially offensive rebounds. Arkansas, Jonas Adu's out. Trevor Brazil's been out the last 2 games. Big Z, with all the three-point shooting and some of the soft skills and the nice touch around the basket and some of the block shots, he'll get in space. He's not a big rebounder, and he's not necessarily, when someone's bodying him around the basket, he'll give up some points. He likes to play in space when he blocks shots. The contact, no thank you. But those are things he'll continue to get better at, I believe. They'll continue to work with him. So plus 2 on the glass. Offensive rebounds, Little Rock plus 5. This is what I'm talking about. These are some of the breakdowns in the second half especially. Plus 5, 13-8, but only plus 1 in second chance points, and that was advantage Arkansas. So Arkansas usually loses that in a smallest to mid-sized margin. They were actually plus 1 there tonight. Bench plus 1, 12-11, Arkansas, pretty much a tie. Points in the paint, Arkansas was plus double digits in the first half, only plus 8 to finish this game. Go back to offensive rebounds. Go back to defensive letdowns and getting out of position and gambling and Little Rock getting some uncontested stuff and some easy shots in the paint. Plus 8, 32-24. It's plus, but it was plus double digits in that first half points in the paint. Fast break scoring, I mentioned earlier, Arkansas finishes plus 13, 22-9. So again, I hang my hat on the transition difference and the free throws, and those were the 2 things I talked about in my preview story as being the 2 keys for Arkansas to come out with what I thought would be actually a bigger win. All respect to Darrell Walker and that program; they do a great job. But I thought KK Robinson being out is a bigger problem for them than a Jonas Adu being out for Arkansas. That's what I thought coming in. And both coaches will probably tell you they felt good about either Little Rock winning if they had KK or Arkansas winning bigger if they had Jonas. They do. So we'll never know on that end. But I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to sign off. I'll probably let some stuff out of here. They're going to start towing media cars after midnight. I don't even know if we've hit it yet because of the early start for the football game. They need the parking lot for football fans, I guess. But I want to thank everybody for joining me on HogvilleNet YouTube Live. Number 20, Arkansas 79. Little Rock, in-state D1 foe 67. The Razorbacks 4-1 on the season right now. One last thing I'll say as I say goodbye. Brand new future Hog, national number 55 according to ESPN 4-star Isaiah Seeley was not only in attendance tonight, but he was at midcourt with leading a hog call during a timeout or at some juncture in the game tonight. So I saw him last weekend when he committed to the Razorbacks. I did an interview with him. It was great to see him up here. He's just down the road in Springdale. But signing off, again, thanks for being here. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done that already. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you then.